Hello all. How are you all doing? I had a very interesting question and still do have. And I want to challenge the viewers on some of the views that I'm going to express in this video. Now this one is a stellar one. So in the morning I opened ChatGPT and typed like, is the world map a simulation? So the app must be quite intimidated by the question. So it said yes. If you're anticipating this answer, yes, the world is a simulation of continents, countries, places, positions, the contours and all that constitutes the landscape and etc. All these details. But I was dissatisfied with the answer because this was not. Uh, I was trying to strike at a point, about a point in which I could get a more clearer picture of my understanding of the world. Although it's a bit abstract idea now at this point of time to think about the template or the structure of the world. So the world map as we know is actually not the real one, because on most of the maps Greenland is shown as something which is similar in size to Africa, whereas in reality Greenland seems to be 14 times smaller in size when compared to Africa. So why this happens is because when you're trying to project a 3D object onto a 2D plane, then naturally some elements get compressed, some gets expanded to fit in that two-dimensional plane. So you see that our understanding of the world is a bit different from what it really is, from what the natural world really is. I was always interested in fractals. So most of you would have known by now that fractals are nothing but a kind of it's a repeating pattern on all the living beings on the earth. So these structures, this is a repeating pattern which is called as the golden ratio, is found on all the living beings on the earth, which means that there is a certain kind of pattern which keeps on repeating itself everywhere and in every place, and that is how life propagates or life proliferates. And so I was not happy with this answer, so I googled and typed in like, can there be blocks inside of trees? Can there be blocks inside of trees? And then Google replied, yes, there can be. There can be hollows, there can be gaps, there can be blocks inside of trees. And how this happens? It all depends on the environment in which the tree grows, or the algorithm of the tree. So if the tree grows around some object which was buried beneath the soil, gradually during the period of its growth, this object becomes part of the tree and is pulled by the tree in some of its parts, and it starts to live inside the tree. So the object actually lives inside the tree. So this is the truth that nobody has yet now. I have not known this truth, that there can be objects inside the tree. Who knows? God knows. If you cut any of those trees which have been living for thousands of years now, you could even see some of the objects which are, having some kind of there could be some kind of artifacts hidden inside of these trees. And don't ask me why people get cancer. So imagine the stress on other parts of the trees if there are some kind of objects or a gap or a hole being created inside of a tree, because all that, the nutrients that has to be conducted, you know imagine the stress of the root. They have to go above the object, they have to engulf the object, right, go in a circumventing fashion. And so this is a kind of an obstruction for the tree and its growth. The root is in constant tussle with the soil, with the other trees which are growing nearby. So it's a constantly fighting with the other trees. No, it's like this. Why? Because it has to pull up all the minerals and nutrients and waters for its own growth, right? It has to conduct it up above the, through the stalk to the branches to the leaves and the flowers and all that. And mind you, the point I was trying to hit is, that I was going to derive through all these questions, is whether the world map is a reference to some kind, or does it relate directly to a tree? Can we see a tree in the world map? Because when you see the countries which are lying beneath the equator, the inhabitants of those countries are either brown or black. Australia, pre-colonized Australia was the same, right? Only the native people were staying there. So those countries which are lying above the equator, the inhabitants of those countries were light complexioned, right? They were more soft and snowy kind of people. So doesn't this resemble doesn't the structure resemble, isn't it akin to a tree? Like you have in the bottom part and in the middle part you have the brown and the black parts, and then you, as it travels up towards the leaves and towards the canopy of the tree, you find leaves and flowers, and which are all very soft and supple parts of the trees. It could be. It's a challenging question. In which case, we have to understand that we are all just simulations of something. We are just repeating some pattern which is already imprinted somewhere in the world. So if you see beneath the soil, the roots are all protruding in this direction, right? That's a fibrous root will be like spread across, and that is what actually we are seeing over the top. The same imprint over the top, right? So that which is found beneath the soil, the same pattern occurring on the top of the tree. You can take an example of cauliflower. So if you take each and every stalk on the flower, every stalk on the flower is actually a repeating pattern of the flower itself. You can see small flowers embedded inside of the bigger one, right? So this is what I was trying to strike out, to pull that point from somewhere, whether this could be true, and if it is true, it's truly intimidating question. And gradually these blocks also grow along with the trees. So you can imagine the stress that is being put on the other parts of the trees. Now this Middle East part, or the Middle East portion of the world, is constantly in crisis. I don't know, is there a greater pull of gravity in the center part of the earth? Is that the reason why the people there are always, subject to a lot of commotions, messed up with religions and, harriets and rules and regulations and all that happening, too much happening in that part of the world? Is it because of this too much pull of gravity in that place? I don't know. I don't understand it. But it has been a center of too much of crisis, starting from 1948, starting from the Arab-Israeli wars. And then the war between Iran and Iraq, which took for around for 8 consecutive years. And then the American war on Iraq wanted to put an end to Saddam Hussein's regime. And then the war between Israel and Palestine, and we all know the story recently, like how Gaza was pounded to dust, and then the Gulf War, and all that happening in that place again and again is a constant. There is a something very intimidating about that portion, and everyone, and it's actually a strait, right? It's a small strait. It's a passage. It's something like very narrow passage where big tankers cannot travel. Only those small ships, the small ones, that which are taking goods in transit, right? Only they can be traversing across that strait, and everyone wants control to that strait. Why? Because the minerals and oil reserves there are crucial for today's corporate world, without which the corporate world cannot function. So everyone wants control to that portion. Think about the nations surrounding those areas. You have Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, all the UAE nations, Oman, Qatar, Israel. So all these countries want to not only have access to that strait but also to control the strait. So now you understand why there is such a lot of commotion. That's because of the oil and the natural reserves there, the fossil fuels there, which serves for the entire tree, without which the human evolution would not have reached to the point where we are currently now. Now, what is actually the problem is? The problem is that there is a block in our thinking. So the Saudi Arabia is now constructing a new pipeline because Iran will never, if once the Strait of Hormuz is closed forever, Iran is never going to open it. So it's going to construct its new pipeline for its new transit. And mind you, during the Iran-Iraq war, even the neutral countries were attacked by Iran. You either have to take a con or a pro position. You cannot stay neutral. So Iran has been very clear since those times. So what are we going to do now? Where is the block currently now? The block is in our thinking. Someone has to let go of something. The Americans have a very concrete way of looking at things. The way the natural world is actually organized is quite different from the way we are actually perceiving. Trump is blown out of proportion. He is a businessman and he looks for business across the world, across the globe. And in that point, I also want to remind you that as a precursor, there was a series of events happening before the war actually began. There was a series of tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic activities going on, and it was so drastic. And as if to somehow manage or to balance that wrath, or I don't know how to explain that, or that commotion or the heaviness of it, or as if as a warning, this war broke out. So I see this as a kind of eventual happening. It's not, there could have been plans, right? Israel could have been the main, could have played a pivotal role in influencing America to to this war, or it could have been a long long standing this misunderstanding, tussle between Iran and other Middle East countries, or could be something. But this one didn't come with a warning. This war didn't come with a warning. It happened as a series of events. If this, and I want to say that if this hypothesis or this understanding about the world is true, then are human beings standing on the verge of going extinct? Or is it the next phase to evolution? Whatever it is, it's in our minds to open up. Or should there be a world forum where everybody's ideas can be taken into account and can be given equal weights? Because each one of the individual is an imprint. Like we have been studying that we are carrying the tissues of plants and animals, no? So we are resembling those plants and animal tissues and cells inside of us. So each one is an imprint. Each one carries a detail about the world. Each one is a template. So, and in this context, you have to understand that if your neighbor is not doing well, you cannot do well. See, if you imagine you are living in a house and your neighbor is constantly creating some kind of commotion, there's frequent fights going on around, and too much of noise to bear and all that, how can you be living in peace? So this has to be understood, that we are all interdependent. We are depending on each and every person on this earth for some kind of relevance, to achieve some kind of relevance. And as I told you, the tree, when you cut the tree, you can see the spirals, rings on the surface, right? And that is the identity of the tree. That tells you a lot about the tree. How many years it has persevered. What are the sufferings it has undergone. You look at a human face, you can understand the sufferings that it has undergone. You see some bumps there, you see somewhere it has gone like concave, right? You see pimples there, here. So this is my identity. This shows how much of suffering and how much of joy I've enjoyed